With the sound of a slap, a kid hits the floor hurt. Startled, the boy cries as he looks up, and there's his stepmom glaring at him with pure disgust. The boy Helm gets on his knees and says he's sorry. The woman asks if he seriously thought he could get away with just an apology. Furious, she yells at him, asking why he's so useless and chews him out for breaking one of her precious vases. Even though he's crying and saying it was an accident, she completely ignores him. His stepmom grabs his clothes and tells him to shut up, saying she doesn't want to hear another word. As the boy screams, the woman drags him to the mansion gate. She ignores every single one of his shouts and finally shoves him out of the house. Coldly, the woman tells him she's not going to say it again, ordering him to get out of her house right now. Helpless, the boy just watches in shock as she abandons him left outside with only the clothes on his back. Meanwhile, a woman slams the book shut, totally pissed off by the plot. The girl thinks she just can't read this anymore, realizing that even though she's read the book a bunch of times, this part always gets to her. All that frustration is aimed at the character Luna Mazamel, the story's villain. She was originally a young commoner admired for being super gentle. But because she was so beautiful, she was forced to become the second wife of a local lord. But just a few days before the wedding, someone from another world woke up in her body. Realizing who she was now, she bolted from her home village, in a new town. This new person acted like a total angel, and so she ended up. Right after the wedding, Viscount Mazamel got sick, and suffered until he finally died. Luna knelt by his coffin, looking like she was mourning the loss of her husband. But under her veil, she was smiling. The woman, now the Viscountess Mazamel, kicked out her late husband's own son, a kid named Helm, right after abusing him. The reader felt super bad for Helm, thinking she would have treated him way better if she were in Luna's shoes, wondering how anyone could abuse a kid that much. After all, to her, characters like that totally deserve to die. Meanwhile, her oven beeped, reminding her about the muffins she was baking. The girl thought they looked perfectly baked and had risen really well today. Now all that was left was to cover them with a double layer of chocolate, and they'd be ready. As she was tending to the oven, the young woman heard loud knocking in the background. Someone was yelling for her, telling her to open the door. She was really hoping today would be a peaceful day. But on the other side of the door, a drunk guy with a bottle in his hand was yelling at her. In the end, the girl, just like the boy in the book, was also a victim of domestic abuse. Her father, even though she had moved a bunch of times, always showed up drunk no matter where she went. The young woman wondered how her dad had managed to find her new place, knowing he was only there to try and squeeze more money out of her. Determined to ignore him, our protagonist turned her attention back to her baking. But when she reached to open the oven, a bunch of crackling sounds echoed through the kitchen, followed by a huge explosion. As the fire spread, the young woman wondered if her life wasn't even more dramatic than the story she'd just read. I mean, her own oven had exploded in the blink of an eye. Reaching out her hand, the girl tried to speak, but no sound came out. She felt the pain of her entire body being consumed by flames. She was thrown to the ground as thick, suffocating black smoke filled her lungs. Her whole life had been spent on the run, always trying to escape something. And even in her final moments, everything was still so tragic and empty. With a flash of light, the girl woke up in the place lit up by a huge chandelier, wondering where she was. Confused, she wondered if maybe she was in heaven. Opening her eyes, the young woman quickly shot that idea down, remembering she'd spent her whole life cussing so someone like her would never get in there. Suddenly, a maid called out to her, calling her Viscountess Mazamel. The name left her totally shocked. The maid continued, pointing out that a little incident had happened. Still confused about why she was called, that the girl jumped out of bed and, thinking it was impossible, rushed around the room. Seeing her reflection in the mirror, shiny blonde hair, amethyst-colored eyes, and a graceful figure. She was the spitting image of Luna Mazamel, the villain from the novel she had reread so many times, wondering if she had really woken up inside a novel. Our protagonist remembered what she thought in her past life about wanting Helm to be treated better by the Viscountess. Even so, she had never actually wished to become Luna herself. Worried, the maid asked if everything was all right. Trying to play it cool so she didn't get treated like a crazy person, our protagonist asked what was going on. The maid hesitantly told her that Helm had fainted. This freaked our protagonist out. But hiding her emotions, she remembered that she had to act like the Viscountess Mazamel, or she would make everyone suspicious. So the girl asked if Helm had really fainted. The maid confirmed it, asking if she should handle him the same way as last time. However, the girl wasn't sure what the maid meant by handle him. Pretending she couldn't remember exactly, the girl asked how they'd handled it before. The maid explained that the Viscountess used to lock the boy up his room and wouldn't let him out until he recovered. Horrified, Luna feels a chill run down her spine. In the end, she decides to visit Helm immediately. Surprised by the change in her behavior, the maid hesitates, but our protagonist asks why she's just standing there and tells her to lead the way. The maid apologizes and they start walking toward the boy's room. With a somber expression, Luna can't think of anything but young Helm. Arriving at the room, the Viscountess holds the door, expecting him to be right behind her. Opening it slowly, Luna is taken aback. Upon entering, she sees a boy lying on his bed. At the sound of her voice, Helm curls up and wakes up. Getting up, the boy turns to her, revealing small bruises on his face. Hesitant and scared, Helm calls her mother. Luna explains that she heard he was sick and asks if it's true. Trembling and apologizing for being a burden, the boy insists he isn't sick, his eyes on the verge of tears as he clutches the bedsheets tightly. In that moment, our protagonist understands the full extent of the abuse the boy has suffered, something she had only read about before, now unfolding right in front of her. In the book's future, after enduring this torment, Helm grows up and becomes the emperor. He ultimately gets his revenge against Viscountess Mazamel, leading to her death. He managed to overcome his past and get his vengeance. Although in her past life Luna felt satisfied reading about Helm's triumph, she can't say the same for herself. Because unlike Helm, our protagonist never found a chance to escape her biological father, who had always harassed her. However, now she sees this as an opportunity to help Helm. Turning to the maid, Luna asks why he's so thin. Disturbed, the maid stammers nervously. Hesitant and trembling slightly, she finally answers that the boy hadn't eaten anything for days. The girl smirks for a second, understanding the situation. With a serious look, she thinks this is nothing more than a flimsy excuse, so she calmly instructs the maid to bring soup for Helm. The maid is surprised but quickly complies. Still trembling, the boy watches everything in silence. Luna turns to Helm, who trembles in fear and curls up. Step by step, the girl approaches, and when she finally reaches Helm, the boy closes his eyes, afraid of what might happen. When he finally peeks, he sees his stepmother's sad and worried expression. Luna thinks that the boy really is sick, feeling his fever just by touching his arm. Reaching out her other hand to the boy, our protagonist wonders if it's okay to move a little closer. Suddenly, Helm starts to cry in a defensive position and begins apologizing in a panic. Our protagonist is startled by his reaction. After all, the boy in front of her is trembling as he insists he won't trouble her again. Luna moves her hand toward him and then tries to reassure him by giving him a hug. She also explains that she came because she was worried about his health and that he doesn't need to apologize. Helm continues to blame himself, apologizing for getting sick and believing he caused problems for her. But he quickly backtracks, trying to pretend that he really isn't sick. Watching all of this, our protagonist wonders how much a child has to suffer to apologize before even saying hello. With a somber expression, she calls to the boy and says that from now on, he is forbidden to apologize. Confused, the boy tries to speak, but Luna quickly points out that he should never apologize for being sick. The young woman then wonders if there's a wet towel that might help bring down Helm's fever. She sees a towel thrown on a nearby tray, but looking around, Luna notices the state of the room. The moldy ceiling, cobwebs everywhere. The room is extremely dirty. It's no surprise the boy is sick. Luna thinks she needs to change this room as quickly as possible. As she pours the contents of the pitcher into a bowl, she realizes that even the water is giving off a rotten smell. Asking if Helm had drunk it, the boy timidly says that he thought he had permission to drink it, apologizing once again. Our protagonist, seeing the terrible state of the water, notes how dire the situation is. With the door creaking, the maid arrives with soup for Helm, and Luna says that she'll feed him herself, which startles the maid. While the maid protests, the girl examines the soup. Seeing that the food on the plate isn't much better than the state of the room, she wonders how she could have forgotten. She remembers that in the book, that same maid, who had always been close to the Viscountess, used to actively abuse Helm while his stepmother neglected him. Furious, our protagonist hurls the plate against the wall, terrifying the maid. With a wicked smile, she orders the woman to bring her something that humans can eat, not that garbage. Later, the woman finally returns with edible soup. But Luna seizes the opportunity to make her life hell, requesting water towels and cold medicine every time the maid steps into the room. The maid obeys but is exhausted, and comes back to report that the mansion has no children's medicine. Luna snaps that if the mansion was out of supplies, it was the maid's responsibility to go out and find them. With a dark smile, our protagonist asks if the maid was by any chance trying to argue with her. Terrified, the woman apologizes, insisting that she wasn't. Turning away, Luna picks up a spoon and asks Helm to open his mouth. Despite his fear and embarrassment, Helm obeys and finally eats something after days of starving. Our protagonist strokes his hair, saying she's relieved to see him eating well. But she still looks worried. She gets that Helm has totally put up a wall to protect himself, like he's covered in thorny vines. To him, everyone in the mansion, including the Viscountess, was just another one of those thorns. As he gets older, those messed up memories will stay stuck inside, eating him up from the inside out. And let's be real, even with all that baggage, he's a total cutie. Anyway, there was only one person who could fix Helm's messed up life. The guy who was his godfather in the original story, Duke Lasius Huppart, so our girl thinks she has to find a way to get him on her side. That way Helm could finally get away from Luna's grip, which has only given him cold and painful memories. Later that night, the maid comes back, saying she broke the adult pill in half. She hands the pieces to Luna. Faking being grateful, the girl complains that they're out of water again. With a smirk, she tells the maid to go get more. Annoyed, the maid wonders why Luna didn't just ask for everything at once. As the maid is shaking with rage, Luna thinks it's so dumb that the woman can't even hide how ticked off she is in front of her. Seriously, the maid was an idiot. She hadn't even noticed her mistress was acting totally different. Smiling, the woman still thought this was all a game, thinking Luna would be nice to Helm for a second, just to crush his hopes all over again. When the maid gets back to the room, Our protagonist asks her for a wet towel, but Luna slams the bucket down saying it's too wet and that the maid needs to wring it out and bring it back. The Viscountess even complains that it's not cold enough. Laughing it off, the maid heads downstairs, but suddenly Luna yells out asking what she's doing. After all, she's supposed to be cleaning up the broken plate. At her wit's end, the maid agrees. While she's wiping the gross floor, the Viscountess tells her she can leave the mansion right now. That statement makes the maid freeze for a second. Dropping the rag, the woman begs her mistress to wait, asking what she means, and pointing out she's been her most loyal servant. Our protagonist asks if she doesn't want to leave, and the maid says of course not. It wouldn't be fair to fire her like this. Taking off one of her earrings, Luna tells the maid she's right, and that she acted without thinking. Holding both earrings in her hands, the Viscountess tells the maid to take them. Surprised, the woman is confused at first. She then asks if Luna is seriously giving her favorite earrings. With a happy look on her face, the maid thinks this is all a setup to surprise her with a gift. As she's about to say she had no idea, Luna cuts her off, pointing out that the maid now has a choice. Get thrown out for stealing from her mistress and live the rest of her life on the run? Or just leave the mansion on her own? It finally clicks for the woman, and tears well up in her eyes. It wasn't a setup. It was payback for how she treated Helm. The maid gets out of there fast after that, leaving Helm and Luna alone in the room. Stroking the boy's head, she says all that noise probably scared him a little, apologizing for it and calling him sweetie. Noticing how filthy the place is, Luna says they should go to her room. Picking the boy up, she walks down the mansion's hallways with him held close. With a smile on her face, our protagonist thinks that from now on she's going to protect him, and she's determined to make sure he's happy for the rest of his life. When she gets there and sets him down in the room, she tells the boy to take a nap. Helm nods okay as Luna leaves. Our protagonist thinks about his sickness, noting that Helm didn't have to get up just to answer her. Another maid from the mansion sees Luna and asks what she's doing there. The woman's name is Jane, and she's the head maid of the mansion. Walking up to her, our protagonist asks for a favor, pointing out that her personal maid just left. Luna asks Jane to spread a rumor that the ex-maid stole something from her. Jane thinks about it for a second, then agrees. Luna is not about to let that woman get away with harassing her favorite character. The young woman keeps going, saying that once that's done, the maid needs to give Helm the best room in the mansion. And she adds coldly that from now on she won't put up with anyone messing with the boy, and that Jane better tell the whole staff. The maid agrees, and with a bow promises to handle it. Finally, Luna asks for the carriage to be made ready. When Jane asks where they're going, Luna says it's the Hupert estate. She's going to visit Duke Lacius Hupert. The next day, as she's leaving her mansion, Luna heads for the carriage. Meanwhile, Jane asks why she has so much luggage. Smiling, Luna says they can just pretend it's bait for some wild animal. The maid watches the carriage leave, wondering if the Viscountess is really going to be okay. After all, she wasn't even invited. In the book titles like The Devil's Cold-Blooded Contractor and the description of a guy who hated women so much he shot down a marriage proposal from the Empire's own princess, could totally describe Duke Hupert. Because he never went to any high society parties, he got a terrible reputation. But even so, the original novel said he was super handsome and hyped him up a lot. Looking out the window, Luna thinks the Duke has zero reason to see her, so she's ready for a tense, hostile meeting. But since he's going to be Helm's future godfather, she's willing to bend a little. When they get there, our protagonist gets out of the carriage amazed by the huge mansion. Turning around, she sees the guard coming over and confidently explains that she's there to meet Duke Hupert. When the guard asks if she has an appointment, she just smiles and goes, "Yeah, just tell Lassus that Luna's here." Kind of thrown by her confidence. He says he'll open the gate once he tells the Duke, asking her to hang tight. As he walks off, the guard thinks she looks like an angel who couldn't tell a lie. Luna wonders if she's going to be waiting for days to hear back. But just her luck, a heavy rain starts pouring over the Hupert estate, but she waits patiently. Suddenly, a soldier shows up, calls her over, and covers her with an umbrella. He explains that His Grace asked for her to be let in. Shocked by how easy it was to get access, Luna follows him inside. When she's announced, she's totally caught off guard. Instead of a reception room, she's taken straight to the Duke's private office. Her fear of walking into the lion's den chills out a bit when a man warmly greets her. And just like that, Luna is face to face with the guy she was looking for. But to her surprise, she notices something. For a guy with a fierce lion reputation, Duke Hupert seems more like a charming cat. She suddenly gets why the Imperial Princess was so into him. He's basically shining like the sun. Noticing she's soaked from the rain, Hupert offers her his coat, but then immediately gets sarcastic, commenting on her nerve. Since she just waltzed in unannounced and used his name so casually, he wonders if they're close or maybe even dating. Luna picks up on his sarcasm and apologizes, explaining she figured the Duke wouldn't agree to a meeting any other way. She then asks why he let her in, even though he knew she was lying. Hupert admits he was curious about how she acted, noting that while tons of women have gone after him, she's the first one to try such a bold move. As he reaches for her face, he admits she's beautiful. But then he asks if Luna came here thinking her looks alone would be enough to persuade him. Then with a smile, he says that if she doesn't want a scar on her pretty face, she'd better give him a damn good explanation. Despite the threat, the girl thinks he has a beautiful smile. Looking into his eyes, she realizes he's the same Duke Huppart from the book she read and tells him she has a proposal for him. Luna asks if they can sit down and the Duke quickly agrees. In the original story, Lasas had zero interest in women and even hated the ones who chased him, making her mission super risky if she couldn't convince him. Huppart pours his tea into a cup and then asks what kind of proposal the young woman has. Luckily, our protagonist has all the right info from the book, so she brings up the spy in the Huppard mansion, an accusation that makes Lasas freeze for a sec. She remembers that Lasas must be dealing with problems from losing a diamond mine recently, and mentions she heard it was handed over to House Hillen. She adds that the spy must be causing some major losses for House Huppart. Setting his cup down with a loud click, the Duke comments that she's definitely well-informed, asking with a serious look on his face if the spy also sold her that info. Luna says that's not important right now, offering instead to catch that little rat and help him get back the diamond mine, development business that Dawson Hillen had taken over. Huppart asks how she plans on pulling all that off. In response, Luna opens her bag and lays a bunch of papers out in front of him. She says she's giving him her intel and future plans, confidently telling him to read it and decide for himself. Grabbing one of the papers, the Duke starts to read and is immediately surprised. After all, the documents have detailed info based on Luna's knowledge of the story, including the spy's identity, his connections, the confidential data he had, and the moves they could make in the future. Our girl watches all this with a smile. She basically knows she's got him convinced, since it also lays out a strategy to exploit House Hillen's weaknesses and get the diamond mine back. That wasn't hard for her. Her only joy in her past life was reading her favorite romance novel over and over, always imagining which path would lead to a happy ending. Her favorite character, Huppart, still skeptical, questions how legit the info is and where she got it. Refusing to give up her source, the girl guarantees the data is solid and that he won't lose anything if he trusts it. Seeing how much effort she put in, Lasas asks what her motive is. Figuring she must want something in return for all this, Luna says that's obvious. She plans to make a contract with the Duke in exchange for the info. Curious, he asks what kind of contract she's talking about. Our girl drops the bomb and says she wants a marriage, asking Huppart to sign a marriage contract with her, totally shocking him with the proposal. Luna clarifies that she's suggesting a contract marriage for about 1 year. Thinking back on the book's plot, she remembers the story where Helm was abandoned by his stepmother, found by Lasas, and then adopted as his son and heir. However, our protagonist can't bring herself to just abandon Helm. But she also can't completely go off script from the novel's storyline. Knowing that her current identity as Viscountess Mazamel could trigger Helm's trauma, she clutches her dress tightly. She decides to help him find Lasas and follow the original plot without messing things up even more. Luna explains that for the Duke to get the diamond mine back, he'll need House Masamel's approval. A goal she says is easy to achieve, since with the marriage, Lasas would get access to her name. As Huppart flips through the papers, Luna lays out a simple plan. They get married, secure the mine, and then divorce. The Duke goes quiet for a second. Our protagonist assures him that in just 1 year, she'll walk away from his life with nothing promising. The marriage will just be in name only, with no feelings involved, since neither of them is into the other. It's just a business deal. Lasias asks Luna if she really has no personal feelings for him, and she confidently says no, even pointing out that they're both free to see other people. All she needs from him is to be her husband on paper. Laughing, Lasias admits the contract sounds pretty good, and that he's got nothing to lose. But he's curious why the girl would go through all this trouble for a 1-year marriage deal, finally asking if that was really all she wanted from him. Luna's real plan was to get Lasias to adopt Helm. However, telling him that now would just make him suspicious, so she just promises to tell him her other intentions later, and offers to prove she's trustworthy by finding the spy first, asking that they talk about the terms of their deal in more detail afterward. Smiling, Lasias repeats the idea of finishing their chat later, almost like he's talking to himself. Making up his mind, the Duke says that sounds fine to him, and from now on, they're partners. Lasias offers her some tea, saying it smells great, but the girl turns him down, explaining she needs to get back home because her kid is waiting for her. With that, she gets up to leave, giving a final bow to the Duke. As she leaves, Lasias smiles, thinking she's interesting and surprised that the young woman isn't even scared of him. Thinking about the marriage proposal, Lasias wonders if he should just play along to see what she'll do next. Back at her mansion, Luna's greeted by her maid Jane, who tells her she's prepped a new room for Helm and asks if she wants to check it out. Luna asks Jane to lead the way. When they get to the room, Jane points out that she picked the sunniest room in the whole house, which is the one where Helm's sleeping. When Luna asks, Jane explains that the kid's been asleep ever since he took the medicine, adding that it seems to be working really well. Relieved, Luna says she was worried about his health, scared it might be something more serious. In her head, Jane is confused by her lady's sudden change of heart towards Helm, remembering how Luna even fired the maid who knew all her likes and dislikes. All this makes her wonder if Luna's planning something. The Viscountess calls her name, snapping Jane out of her thoughts. Luna asks if she can get a closer look at Helm. A little surprised and chuckling, Jane points out that she's his mother. Of course she can. Walking over to the bed, our protagonist sits next to Helm, wondering how such a sweet kid could one day become a tyrant and vowing that she would do anything to stop it. Dipping a cloth in water and wringing it out, Luna places it on the boy's forehead. Jane, shocked, offers to take care of him. After all, she's the maid, but Luna insists she wants to do it herself. Turning around, Luna wonders what else she can do for him, then asks Jane if there's an oven she can use. In the kitchen, a little nervous, Jane asks if her lady plans on cooking for Helm. Luna says yeah, she does. She wants to make something for him, but quickly tells the maid not to worry. She's just gonna make a small snack. With a baking sheet in her hand, Jane watches in surprise as Luna lays out a few simple treats. Just as the Viscountess is about to put them in the oven, a sudden series of thuds and bangs echoes through the kitchen. I swear, if this oven blows up too, it's just too much of a coincidence, Luna mutters. She asks Jane what happened, and the maid says she'll go check. From the kitchen, Luna sees Jane talking to an angry woman. While Jane's explaining that you have to make an appointment in advance, the woman loses her cool, yelling that this is her son's house, and she shouldn't have to, ordering the maid to get out of her face. Startled, Luna realizes the woman is Countess Sasha Mazamel, her mother-in-law from the original novel. Sasha is a greedy character who didn't show any interest when her son died, but suddenly popped up when his inheritance was on the table. Our protagonist decides she's not going to let Sasha take anything that's rightfully Helm's. Later, Luna and Sasha are sitting together in a room. Sasha rips into our protagonist for her outfit. After all, she's not wearing any black to show she's in mourning. The woman keeps on questioning how Luna could be so shameless when her son died right after marrying her. Our protagonist just ignores her comments while sipping her tea. In the book, Luna's late husband Viscount Mazamel died from an STD. But Luna also knows that the original Viscountess was a villain totally capable of offing her own husband, so Sasha's suspicion isn't completely baseless. Our protagonist asks why she even came to the mansion. Sure, it wasn't just to say stuff like that. Sasha, admitting she has a point, adds sarcastically that Luna is acting like she's smart for a change. Finally, Sasha admits she's there to deal with her son's inheritance, insisting that Luna can't keep living in such a fancy mansion now that her son is dead. Our protagonist calmly replies that she won't be living there anymore, but either way, the mansion belongs to her son Helm and to her. This pisses Sasha off and she screams that the mansion belongs to House Mazamel. She demands how some low-born girl could dare claim something that belongs to a count's family. Luna answers that the woman is just trying to get her hands on what belongs to her son and reveals that she has Viscount Masamel's will. Sasha is stunned, thinking this is impossible, and admits she searched the whole mansion but couldn't find it. Laughing, our protagonist knows the woman cares more about her son's money than his death. The reason Sasha couldn't find the will is simple. In the original story, as Viscount Mazamel was on his deathbed, Luna talked about how scared she was of being abandoned and kicked out by the Countess if he died, pointing out that his mother hated her. So she got the Viscount to write a will in his final moments and kept it hidden from everyone. The irony is, that will is what allows our protagonist to pass the mansion on to Helm, even though she only got it because of the villain's past actions. So Luna reveals that the will is at Archibald Bank, where the official records are kept, making its authenticity impossible to dispute. Freaking out, Sasha reacts to the mention of Archibald Bank, knowing its contents can't be changed, not even by the imperial family. Luna offers to go check it out in person, or if not, to have the file sent straight to Sasha's house. Annoyed, the woman turns and storms out of the mansion, slamming the door. Luna thinks about how easy it is to solve problems using info from the novel, finding it all kind of boring. Still, a peaceful solution like this is way better than her past life. She could only put up with all that suffering for Helm, the book's main character, and so she just wants to make him happy. Later, Luna and Helm are sitting together at the table. In her head, Luna can't help but be surprised by how sweet the kid is. He stares at her for a second, and she freezes when she sees his startled expression. Then Helm suddenly starts coughing. Startled, our protagonist asks if he's okay, suggesting he drink some milk. Crying, Helm apologizes, asking if he made his mom lose her appetite. The girl is confused and doesn't get it, but he quickly says that sitting across from her at the table must have grossed her out so much she couldn't eat. Luna realizes the kid thinks it's his fault she didn't eat her soup, and she gets that she was being insensitive. The protagonist figures that if she keeps acting like the same old Luna, she'll never make him happy, so she has to show Helm how she really feels. Getting up from the table, she assures him that he wasn't being unpleasant and doesn't need to apologize. The boy hesitates, totally confused. She kneels on the floor beside his chair, feeling guilty, and realizing she should have said sorry sooner. She thinks about how Helm was already messed up by Viscountess Masamel's neglect and all the abuse he'd been through. So how could she ever make him happy without apologizing for all of it first? Looking at the boy, Luna apologizes with a serious look on her face for her cold behavior and for ignoring the maid's abuse, and asks for forgiveness for everything that has hurt him. The boy already has tears in his eyes. Finally, Luna promises to never hurt him again, and asks that no matter how hard it might be, he trust her just this one time. All of this leaves the boy completely speechless. Even though she knows Helm won't open up just because she apologized, the girl only wants him to experience the affection he's never known. Promising to do everything possible for his happiness, Helm shyly nods. With that, the protagonist pulls out a small package and asks the boy to take it. When he asks what it is, Luna quickly says it's a present for him. She brought some macarons and a bib. As she shows him the bib, the protagonist explains she picked it because she thought it would look good on him. When asked if he likes the gift, Helm shyly says yes and immediately ties it around his neck. Clapping her hands, the protagonist says it looks great. The boy gets a little bashful as Luna remarks how adorable he looks. Helm doesn't know why his mom suddenly started treating him so nicely, but deep down he hopes it will last forever. Later at the Huppert estate, Luna gently knocks on a door. With a loud bang, Lacius throws it open, startling her. The girl explains that the situation got handled way faster than she expected, revealing the spy dipped right after his visit, making her wonder if the spy was just super fast or really perceptive. Despite that, Luna still managed to dig up some info on him, placing a paper on the table. As Lacius checked out the records, he was impressed by the amount of detail concerning the spy's movements. Luna says they need to capture the spy immediately, noting that even though they've tracked his movements, he could bounce at any moment. When Lacius asks what she's going to do next, the girl just says that of course she's going to go after him and catch him. Watching her with a slight smile, the Duke admits that it sounded like fun, and so he would tag along. The protagonist wonders if Lacius might be too busy for this. And no matter how much he insists that he's free, the mountain of papers and documents on his desk proves that Lacius was lying. However, since he insisted so much, Luna gives in, letting him join her search for the spy. Finally, he asks where they should go. Now arriving at the location, they come across a casino. Lacius figures that the spy probably didn't come there to gamble, but to meet someone, which Luna agrees with. The girl then suggests that they should go to the VIP room on the second floor. But as they walked in, someone recognized Duke Huppert, shocked by his presence. Lacius points out that he had some business on the second floor, asking if he was free to pass. The guard confirms that he is, but asks who the woman with him is. Pulling her close, the young man simply says that she's his wife. The guards bow and apologize for the inconvenience. The protagonist feels relieved, realizing Hubert being with her made it easy to get in. She probably would have been blocked if she'd come alone. Hubert asks why she didn't open the door, but she hesitates. Asking for a sec, she wonders if she should handle the spy herself, remembering what happened in the book. In the story, this spy caused some serious damage to House Huppert by leaking top-secret info, which led to the family's downfall, even losing part of their night order. Right when the house was on the brink of total ruin, Helm, who'd been abandoned by Viscountess Mazamel, showed up before him. That's how Lacius and Helm met, which allowed the boy to become the future heir of House Huppert in the book. But Luna figured if she married Lacius, Helm would just become her adopted son anyway. So there was no need to let the spy keep causing trouble. However, just as the protagonist was about to open the door, Hubert stopped her, telling her to wait a sec. Suddenly, someone yanked the door open. Seeing the Duke outside, the man cursed and took off running, crashing into the girl as he realized he'd been caught. Lacius warned the guy that he should know running wouldn't do any good. Desperate, he frantically looked all around, trying to think of a way out of this mess. Noticing Luna on the ground, the man went over to her, grabbing her by the collar of her dress. With a serious look, Hubert watched the whole thing go down. The man then pressed a knife to her throat, yelling that if anyone got close, he'd kill her. Hubert told Luna to stay calm. The girl replied that she was fine, but the man just smiled and asked how. Lacius could be so calm in this situation, claiming he'd kill her if he attacked. The spy figured he was pretty much cornered. Now that Lacius had found him out, the man was sure the Duke would chase him to the ends of the earth to kill him. Despite this, he also realized the girl must be super important to Lacius, since he got real quiet after Luna was taken hostage. Noticing Hubert's hesitation, he smirked, thinking this was his chance to act and get rid of him for good. The spy ordered Hubert to turn around and close his eyes. Hubert did as he was told, even though he didn't want to. In his head, the Duke knew the guy was going to try to kill him right here and now. Finding it humiliating to die for a woman like this, he still tried to figure out a plan to get out of there alive. As the man got closer, Lacius wondered if he should have just let her get a little hurt instead of sacrificing himself so easily. But deep down, he knew he wouldn't have done it any other way. Shoving Luna aside, the man went for Hubert. Annoyed, the protagonist thought that she wasn't scared of the threats or any pain she might feel. Her father had made her go through that a million times in her past life. What really mattered to her now was getting rid of this spy, so Helm could be happy in the future. The man was already charging at Lacius with the knife in his hand, who was already thinking he could stop him, even if it meant giving up an arm to block the attack. But the attack he was waiting for never came. Startled, he turns around only to see Luna again. She had jumped in front of the attack to protect him. Stunned, he asks why she did that. But just as the man was about to strike again, Hubert moves in and quickly shuts it down, grabbing his arm and taking the guy down, throwing him to the ground to end the situation. Standing over the spy, Lacius then tells Luna to take care of her wound, promising he could handle everything from here on out, and that watching what was about to happen wouldn't be pretty. Tossing him to the ground, Lacius watched the man tremble with fear. He kneels down to get a better look, noting how the spy had seemed so cocky just a second ago, a total flip from where he was now. Grabbing the man's face, Lacius asks if he had fun selling his info. Ignoring the spy's desperate pleas, the Duke points out that since he screwed up from the start, he shouldn't even be begging for forgiveness. Then he slaps him across the face. He asks if the young man really didn't see this coming if he sold out his information. A thick, dark mist swirls around Lasas's hand, and with a serious expression, he forces the man to spill who was pulling the strings, warning him that if he refused to talk, his life would end right then and there. After treating her own wound by using her sleeve to stop the bleeding, Luna gets nervous, wondering if the Duke would be okay handling this by himself. Under the pressure of Hubert's magic around his neck, the man was suffering, struggling just to breathe, but he kept his mouth shut, more scared of exposing who was behind this than of dying. If he got caught after snitching, his fate would be even worse. As memories of the man who ordered him flashed through his mind, the spy bit his own tongue, collapsing dead in a pool of his own blood. Cursing, Lasas gets frustrated. After all, he hadn't planned on killing him without getting the info he needed. And he never thought the guy would kill himself like that. Sighing, he turns his attention to Luna's wound. Later, Hubert patched up her arm, noting that luckily it wasn't too deep, guessing the spy must have been startled by his sudden move. When Luna winced in pain, the Duke with a grim look asks why she jumped in front of the attack, not knowing how to explain since she couldn't just say it was because of Halalem. She jokes that she didn't want his pretty face to get any scars. Hubert freezes for a second, then thanks her for her help, but also asks her not to pull something like that again. Luna's like, why not? After all, she helped catch the spy, adding that in the end what she did was a good thing. However, Lasias points out that weirdly enough, he didn't want to see her get hurt, joking that maybe it was because she was his future wife now. Luna is surprised and confused, wondering if Lasias was always like this. I mean, she still remembered him being described as cold-blooded and merciless. After finishing up the treatment, Huppart says he's done, and Luna's arm is all bandaged up. As the girl thanks him, the Duke replies that it was the least he could do since she got hurt because of him. Luna says she's grateful not just for that, but also for going with her to the gambling den and questioning the spy, and he just says it was no big deal. Watching her leave, Duke Lasias leans against the gate, lost in thought, thinking it's all super weird, smiling, as he feels this new sensation from Luna's praise. He'd never felt that with any woman before, so why was he so hyped when she did it? At the same time, some soldiers coming back from training walk across the courtyard. A red-haired girl says it's going to be even more intense next time. One of the guards points to the gate where they see the Duke smiling. The young guy asks if maybe something good happened, guessing that maybe Lasias was planning to off someone, thinking that otherwise he wouldn't be smiling like that, and wishing the future dead guy rest in peace. The girl agrees that could be it. And as the soldiers walk by, the Duke wonders what's wrong with him. He's confused by all this, since whenever he thought of that woman, a weird feeling came up. Sometime later at the Massel residence, Luna notices a dove landing on her window. Seeing the bird has a letter tied to its leg, she realizes someone sent her a carrier pigeon. Surprised, she opens the letter, and it's a message from Lasias, saying he was dying to see her again, that he missed her like crazy, and asking if she was going to leave him waiting forever. The Duke asks when they can see each other again. Luna can't help but to think the letter's content and wording is weird. It even seemed like the Duke was a little puppy trying to act all cute to get attention from its owner. Laughing to herself, she thinks that she was already planning on visiting him anyway. Then she sends him a reply asking if they could meet up in the evening. When the pigeon gets to Lasias, the young man immediately smiles. He sends back a message saying he'd love that and that Luna would be welcome anytime. After getting the reply, Luna asks Jane to get a carriage ready for her since she's going to the Huppart mansion. However, the maid points out that might not be necessary and tells her to look out the window. When she does, our protagonist notices a carriage filled with flowers. Jane explains that Duke Huppart had sent it just a little while ago. Luna is surprised. I mean, the carriage wasn't there just a few moments ago. She also wonders if Lasias has secretly always been a romantic at heart. Asking Jane to tell the coachman she'll be there soon, she goes to get ready to leave. Later, when she arrives, Duke Huppart opens the carriage door and greets her, telling her that he'd been waiting for her. Lasias asks how her arm is, and Luna with a smile says it's much better now. He says he's relieved to hear that, telling her how anxious he was, since he hadn't heard any news from her. Laughing, the girl teases him, calling him a liar. But turning to Luna, Lasias replies that he was telling the truth, asking what on earth would make her think he was lying. Staring at him for a second, our protagonist comments that he reminds her of a little puppy she once had. Confused, Lasias asks if the dog was at least a boy, but tough luck for him. She replies that it was a girl, and he jokingly says that Luna must not find him very attractive as a man. Anyway, the girl puts the contract on the table and asks him to read it. Offering to answer any questions Lasias might have, her expression turning serious. The Duke glances at the paper. However, he quickly says that he doesn't want to talk about business. Confused, Luna asks what he wants to talk about. Then with a smile on his face, he asks what she's been up to. This leaves her confused, wondering if he's actually curious about that. But seeing the way Lasias was smiling, our protagonist found herself unable to blow off his question, finally telling him that she'd recently baked some cookies. Shocked, Lasias is confused for a second. Remembering Halim's reactions, the girl continues saying she also made macarons and madeleines. Huppart asks if she made them for herself, since she loves sweets so much. She replies that even though she likes them, she made them as a gift for someone. Hearing that Lasias goes into full-on jealous mode even before they've signed the marriage contract, repeating what she just said. Luna wonders to herself why he's acting like this, pointing out that he doesn't remember getting any gifts. The Duke asks who she gave them to. Surprised, the girl asks if he likes sweets, offering to bring some over next time she bakes. Pushing a little more, Lasias again asks who she gave them to. She nervously explains that she made them for Helm, using her pet name for him. Clenching his fist in anger and jealousy, the young man asks who that is. Our protagonist quickly points out that it's her son. Huppert is surprised for a moment as she says that soon Helm will be his son too, since they're going to get married. Laughing at this little misunderstanding, Lasias says that she had really mentioned having an adopted son. The protagonist can't help but wonder if he's really the Duke Huppert from the book. He seemed way different than she remembered. Luna then decides to get back to the contract. She explains that it's for 1 year with the single condition that Lasias adopt Helm as his own son, treating him as his heir and giving him a proper education. Luna hopes that after a proper education, Helm will be able to manifest his ring just like in the original story, and that Lasias will actually see him as his own son too. Duke Huppert agrees, saying that sounds good. The girl then asks if he wanted to add any other conditions, to which Huppert suggests that they be exclusive to each other, not seeing anyone else during the contract, acting like a real couple. Luna is shocked and hesitates for a sec, but figures she isn't interested in other guys anyway, so she agrees to the proposal. After signing the contract she brought, the protagonist is surprised when Lasias tells her to sign another document. When she asks what it is, the Duke just says it's the marriage registration. Confused, she asks him if they really need to register their marriage with the Empire, since they'll just have to file for divorce in a year anyway. Lasias smiles, and replies that if they're going to do this, they should do it right. He mentions that he had planned to stay single for the rest of his life, but now he has the chance to be married for a year thanks to Luna. The girl gets a little worried that this is the reason he wants to make it official, but she ends up signing the marriage registration anyway. They hear a muffled voice in the distance asking if he's in this room, and suddenly a woman barges in looking super annoyed as she yells Lasias' name. They both turn surprised by her entrance. Furious, she asks if it's true that Lasias was getting married without even telling her. Luna realizes the woman is the Dowager Duchess Cameline Huppert, Lasias' birth mother. Nervous, the protagonist wonders what to do, worried that if Cameline is against it, the marriage will be over before it even starts. With an air of superiority, the woman asks Luna if she's the one marrying her son. A little hesitant, the girl nods, apologizing for not telling her sooner, even though they haven't signed the papers yet. Saying there's no time for explanations, Cameline orders some people in. A group of servants enters the room, all holding a ton of gifts. Confused, the protagonist can't even form a sentence. Then the Duchess says they can't welcome a new family member empty-handed, and asks the girl about her preferences for dresses and shoes. With a box in her hand, the woman shows Luna a necklace, hoping they have similar taste. She notes that it's one of her favorites, and would probably look great with her skin tone. Still not totally getting what's happening, the protagonist asks what all this is for, while Lasias sits in the background quietly sipping his tea. The woman says she's very grateful to Luna. After all, Cameline was worried since her son turned down every woman before her, saying he didn't want to get married. She continues, pointing out that Lasias was probably just waiting for his perfect match to show up. The protagonist thanks Cameline for all her kindness, but hesitantly she says that His Grace the Duke has already given her more gifts than she deserves. The woman then asks why she refers to her future husband, so formally explaining that she should just call him by his first name. Luna stares at him for a moment until Lasias smiles and asks her to do just that. As the two of them smile, the protagonist finally realizes the mess she's gotten herself into. Thinking that nothing is free, she's afraid that Cameline might ask her for some shady favor in the future. To her surprise, the woman walks up to her, explaining that she can probably guess what she's thinking. The Duchess asks why Luna needs to overthink every little thing, saying she gave her those gifts just because she liked her with no strings attached. The protagonist doesn't get it. After all, she came from a humble background, and this wasn't even her first marriage. This makes both of their expressions darken. Cameline adds that she doesn't care about her past or where she comes from. Of course, she's going to like the woman her son chooses to love, pointing out that's how all mothers should feel about their children. She also says that if anyone dares to disrespect her or give her crap about where she's from, Luna should bring that person to her. After all, House Huppert never forgives those who look down on their family. This statement leaves the protagonist feeling touched. Clenching her fist tighter, she wonders why everything is so easy in this world. In her past life, she didn't have the luxury to even dream of getting married. The girl never had a mother, and her father was always awful to her. Changing the subject, the woman notes that the jewels in front of her are beautiful too, and that with so many options, she can't decide which one to give as a gift. Finally, she decides to give her both. Watching this scene, the protagonist thinks she doesn't mind that this world is so simple. Watching Luna's smile, Lasias can't help but blush, amazed by her beauty. He moves closer and sitting down next to her. Lasias asks if she's tired, but she just says she's fine. The protagonist notes that she just isn't built for this kind of thing. After all, she doesn't feel tired, it's just that this new feeling is weird. Wondering if she'd ever had a mother. Would she have loved her unconditionally just like Cameline did? Noticing Luna, the Duke asks what that was about. Smiling, she replies that she was just jealous of him. That comment leaves him confused. She continues pointing out that she never had a real family, so she felt a little jealous seeing him with such a loving mother. Smiling at that, Lasia says she won't have to feel that way anymore. And holding her hand, he explains that soon they'll be a family when they get married. Luna pauses for a second, but laughing she agrees with the Duke. It would only be for 1 year. But during that time, she would finally have a family too. For the second time, Lashes can't see her smile without being shaken. And holding her hand, the young man asks if they couldn't just extend the contract, suggesting that a century would be ideal, saying he'd be sad to be her family for just 1 year. Luna wide-eyed asks if he's joking, but he quickly denies it, stating he's serious. An awkward silence hangs in the air. Trying to break the mood, Luna pulls her hand away, attempting to change the subject. While sadness is visible in his eyes, she asks if he had any free time. Forcing a smile, Lasia says he has all the time she needs. Luna pulls out a letter, and when he asks about it, she points out that it's an invitation from House Hillen, trying to figure out why the Duke acted like he'd never seen it before. She asks if Lasius also got one. Lasius hesitates for a moment before admitting that he did. Luna says that she needs to go to their party, then asks him to be her date. Once again, the atmosphere gets tense, and silence fills the room. And when she asks him if he really got an invitation, the Duke's reaction is weird. He moves closer and whispers something in her ear, leaving her shocked. Luna screams in disbelief when she learns that he threw the invitation out. That's so something he would do, actually. Calming herself down, she assumes that Lashes didn't plan on going to the party anyway. However, he flat out declares that he will, leaving Luna confused. After all, he just said he got rid of the invitation. Confused, she thinks that she doesn't want him to go just for her sake and mentions that she could go with someone else. Sounding slightly irritated, Lashes asks who she would take if he didn't go. Thinking that maybe this upset him, Luna admits that she hasn't thought about it yet. Annoyed, Lashes says that rather than see someone else by her side, he'd much rather go to the party himself. Just to confirm, she points out that they'll go together then, and Lasius nods. Curious, she notices something in his hand and asks what it is. Lasius reveals a gun and places it on the table. This guy really doesn't mess around. He barely heard about his girl going with someone else to the party, and he's already pulling out a gun. Intrigued, Luna asks to check it out, which he immediately allows. As she handles the gun, she's amazed to see something she'd only ever read about. Lasius comes closer, and asking if she's interested, offers her the chance to try shooting it. She's initially surprised by how close he is, but she decides to ask if she really can. The Duke replies that she can shoot as much as she wants. Aiming straight ahead with a serious expression, she finally pulls the trigger. Lasius praises her stance, and notes that if the gun had been loaded, she would have shattered the window. He asks her when she learned to handle a gun. Nervously, she shares that she learned a little bit as a kid. She remembers that she practiced with a gun in her past life. Her real goal was to be able to kill her abusive father someday, but she died before she got the chance to test her skills. Lasius explains that normally a ring is used to cover the barrel before firing. As he demonstrates, Luna recalls that a ring was like a donut-shaped substance, created by conjurers with strong destructive power and some level of consciousness. In theory, it's able to have infinite potential depending on its user. Lasius adds that rings return to the conjurer after hitting the target, making them more convenient than bullets. She nods in agreement. Luna remembers how rare it was for someone to be able to create rings, recalling how Helm in the original book took 8 years to create only 3. As the Duke manifests his power, she can only watch in shock, wondering how the hell Duke Lasius could do that so easily. Lasius teases her, noting that she couldn't take her eyes off his power, then asking if she preferred his rings to his face. She stops for a moment and, enjoying the sight of a pouting Lasius, she thinks he really does look like a little puppy. So she brings her hand to his head and starts to pet him. Irritated, he asks if Luna is treating him like a dog, which she quickly confirms with a laugh. Despite his sulky expression, the young man's ears turned red from embarrassment. Back at her mansion, she anxiously asks where Helm was, and Jane informs her that the boy was still in his room. The maid then asks what she's holding. With a smile, Luna excitedly shares that she brought some treats for Helm. Realizing that the Viscountess had really been caring for Helm lately, Jane is relieved, thinking she wouldn't need to worry. However, the maid advises her not to give the boy too many sweets, as it could affect his health, making him get sick more easily. Luna agrees, stating that after she gives him these, she'll try to stop spoiling him so much. Sighing. The main character still thinks Helm needs to eat more. After knocking, Luna gets to the boy's room. Startled, Helm makes a loud noise and all flustered tells her to wait a sec before coming in. Shyly peeking through the door, the kid says his mom got here super early today. Walking into the room, the main character asks what he was up to, and nervously Helm says he wasn't doing anything, which was a total red flag. Sensing the boy was acting weird, Luna wonders if she's just imagining it. The girl shows him her bag, saying she brought some chocolate pudding for him, and asks if he wants to try it. Excited, he gulps in anticipation. Thinking his reaction is super cute, she tells him to have a seat. Helm eagerly does what she says. She says she bought the dessert at a really famous bakery and hopes it's good. Then Luna slides the plate over to him and tells him to go on and try it. As she watched the boy eat the pudding, his face turning red. Helm exclaims that it's delicious. Staring at her for a second, Helm shyly offers her a bite. Agreeing, Luna wonders if they're finally getting a little closer now. But even so, you could totally see his hands trembling. None of his traumas were going to disappear that fast. The boy still couldn't totally trust her yet. Regardless, Helm was trying his best to open up to her, and she wondered how she could ever repay his courage. As the boy held the spoon out to her, Luna took a bite of the pudding, and when she said how good it was, Helm's face lit up with relief and happiness. The main character figures he was probably still scared his mom would say no. And making her even more determined, she vowed to do everything to make the boy perfectly happy in 1 year's time. After finishing the treat, Luna asks if he liked it, and Helm enthusiastically says yes. Laughing, she suggests they go for a walk if he isn't busy, saying they could go to his favorite swing. Helm's expression instantly changes, and he looks totally terrified. Hesitant, the boy was obviously anxious. See, in the original story, the Viscountess Mazamel had destroyed it while calling him horrible names. Unfortunately for Helm, that swing was one of his favorite things in the garden, but his stepmom still had it destroyed. In the future, when the young man became emperor, he would return to the mansion and rebuild the swing, making it out of huge branches. This was all because it was so hard to erase the painful memories from his childhood. Talking to Helm, the main character reassures him, saying the swing is back, and tells him to come see it. Surprised, Helm asks if that's true. The main character says it is, and points out that they should go check it out. Heading to the garden, Helm ran excitedly toward the swing, while Luna followed a little ways behind him. The main character asks what he thinks, and if he likes it. Beaming, the boy says he loves it. He quickly sits on the swing. Walking closer, Luna calls his name. The boy responds with a smile, but his expression turns sad. The girl says that she had treated him horribly after his father's death. She promises she'll try her best, so Helm will never have to feel that scared again, and that getting his swing back was her way of saying sorry. Helm agrees shyly, and says he has a gift for her, which totally surprises the main character. But when he gets up to go get it, the boy trips and falls off the swing. Worried, Luna rushes over to him, asking if he's okay. Helm insists that he's fine, but the main character notices he's trying to hide how much it hurt. After all, she had done the same thing as a kid. Too always afraid of being punished for something. Luna realizes she probably wants to see him happy by the end of the book because she sees herself in him. She'd always wanted that kind of affection from her own father. And giving him a loving hug, she tells him he doesn't have to hide the pain anymore, explaining that it's not his fault it hurts, and asking him to always tell her when he's hurt. While she held him, Helm trembled and sobbed, finally letting out some of his true feelings. To herself, the girl promised to give him all the love she never got. While the boy was still sniffling, Luna just thought his reactions were adorable. But then she suggests they go back inside to check on his scrape and make sure his knee isn't too bad. As they get ready to leave, Helm hesitates and calls out to her, nervously twisting his fingers. Seeing this, Luna encourages him to speak up, promising she'll do anything for him. Working up his courage, the boy then shouts, asking his mom to hold his hand. She freezes for a second, processing what he just said, but then she laughs and quickly agrees, which makes the boy break into a huge smile. Holding hands, the two of them walk through the garden toward the mansion. Once they get inside, Helm nervously reveals that he made something for her in his room earlier. Shyly, the boy says he doesn't know if she'll like it, but Luna tells him she'll be happy with any gift from him no matter what it is. Helm then gives her a flower with a pink ribbon tied around it. The main character is touched by the gesture, realizing this is what he was doing in secret earlier. Helm had prepared this gift for her, even though he still doesn't fully trust her. Embarrassed, the boy gives a little bow, saying his gift isn't much compared to what she did. But Luna quickly shoots that idea down, and with a warm smile, happily thanks him. Once again, the boy calls out to his mom, but he freezes up before he can say what he wants, leaving the main character a little confused. The boy thinks his mother smiled when she got the gift he made, wishing he could see her like that more often. Over at the Huppard estate, Lasius and Luna were sitting down. Fiddling with her stuff, the girl hands him the official contract. The Duke smiles and teases her, joking that she decided to bring up the contract right away. As he sips his tea, Luna ignores his comment and explains she's doing this because it's important. Duke Huppard points out that she's finally drinking her tea, a remark that leaves her confused for a second. Lasius points out she never drank tea before, no matter what kind it was or how famous. So he figures that Luna really does like sweet stuff. And looking at her cup, the girl notices a bunch of sugar cubes floating in it, while Lasius says he made it just for her. Luna gets it, but she quickly puts the cup down on the table, making the Duke laugh. Getting serious, she says they should sign the contract right now. Lasius agrees and finally signs the document. After signing, he tells her he'll keep it safe, but Luna asks if it wouldn't be better to keep it at Archibald Bank. Lasius then says his vault is the safest place in the whole empire, and she agrees. But in exchange, she asks Lasius to answer a question. When the Duke tells her to go ahead, Luna brings up the rings they had talked about before. She hesitates, thinking that if Helm learned to use his rings earlier than in the original story, he'd have way less trouble and nobody in the world would know more about that power than Lasius. So the girl asks how many people could use those rings. saying she was just really curious. Lassius starts to explain, and after thinking for a second, he says that most members of House Huppart are familiar with rings from the day they're born. So most of them know how to use them, though not all of them get the hang of it. When the protagonist points out that some family members can't do it, Lassius adds that those people were easily kicked out of the family. Since he's the Duke, Lassius should be able to use the rings better than anyone. She then asks Huppart to show her the ring again, thinking back on the original story. Luna remembers how Helm learned, noting that after 8 years of hard practice, he could use 3 rings, and as Emperor he could use up to 7. But to her surprise, the guy in front of her was completely off the charts. With a crazy number of rings appearing and disappearing, Luna thinks she wasn't wrong about him after all. The girl asks if people outside of House Huppart can also create rings, and when he says yes, she asks about how many people might have that power. Duke Huppart says he doesn't know for sure, but it probably isn't a lot, mostly because of how sensitive the rings are. Thinking about learning to use a ring to help Helm, Luna asks if Lassius thinks she could do it. The young man asks if she'd like him to teach her. Surprised by the offer, the protagonist gets curious. But Lassius wants to make a deal for it. And when she asks what it is, the Duke smiles, gestures, and says he'd like to get 1 kiss a day. Luna gives him a cold look, staring at him in silence, like she's thinking about stabbing him. The girl asks if that was supposed to be a joke, making Lassius go quiet and sigh. The Duke apologizes for it, suggesting that they could at least see each other a little more, and she agrees. Luna points out they could meet up at her mansion whenever Lassius was free. Lying, the Duke then asks if they could see each other every day, claiming he has tons of free time on his schedule. Knowing he was actually super busy, the protagonist changes the subject. She asks how many people in the mansion could control a ring. Lassius says only 3. They were Roxana Stur, Ludgar Eckhart, and Hizette. Drinking her tea, Luna thinks that if she remembers correctly, they were the ones who taught Helm about the rings. She then asks Duke Huppart to introduce her to them. Lassius quickly says no, and when she asks why, he says he's enjoying his alone time with her and doesn't want anything to ruin the mood. Smiling, the girl points out that she'll meet them eventually when they get married anyway, and she'd rather Huppart introduce her properly. He blushes when she mentions marriage, and ends up giving in, pointing out that he can never seem to win against her. Later on the Huppart training grounds, the sound of fighting rings through the air. Ludgar runs up to Roxana holding a piece of paper and asking if it's really true their master's getting married. His sudden appearance messes up her training, but he comes closer anyway, insisting it has to be fake. In the letter, the Duke asks them to come back to the mansion as soon as they read the message telling them his marriage is the reason why. Looking at the seal, the woman confirms it's from House Huppart. While Ludgar is still shocked by the news and refusing to believe it, Roxana says she isn't sure, suggesting the marriage the Duke is talking about might mean something else. Not the kind they're thinking of. Something like a metaphor or a code, like he's got a new ally. Ludgar agrees, nodding and saying for sure that Huppart could never love anyone, and asks if Roxana agrees. They both brush off the idea of a regular marriage, but then they hear footsteps coming closer. It turns out Duke Huppart and Luna have shown up. Lassius smiles at the protagonist, pointing out that 2 of the people she was looking for are already here, revealing they're his knights and ring users. Shocked, Ludgar and Roxana are amazed to see that the Duke is actually laughing. With one hand on Luna's shoulder, Lassius is a sight that leaves his knights totally speechless. Ludgar even asks if he's dreaming, but Roxana, with a soft look on her face, tells him it's real. Lassius walks up, saying he's going to introduce her to them. As the Duke pauses, the protagonist stares at them, remembering she heard one member named Hizette has silver hair, so by a process of elimination, they must be Ludgar and Roxana. Catching her staring, Lassius asks why she's looking at them like that. Getting all jealous, he asks if she's maybe into Ludgar calling him a jerk while he's at it. Embarrassed, the protagonist denies it, claiming it's nothing like that, and she's just there to get to know them. Pouting a little, the Duke wonders if all this is really necessary. And trying to blow off some steam, he suggests Luna call Ludgar like he's some waiter, yelling, "Hey you!" And with a smirk, Lassius says, "From now on, that's his name." Then he finally introduces her to Roxana, the captain of the knights. Freaking out on the inside, Ludgar prays the Duke isn't jealous of him. Later, Roxana and Ludgar are chilling in the courtyard. He asks her if while he was out of town, something might have happened with their master. Roxana is like, seriously, did he really think that was even possible after all she'd served him for about 10 years and still can't figure out why he even needs guards? Laughing at her, Ludgar makes a crack about her only having 1 ring. Roxana flips out, grabbing him by the collar and threatening to use that 1 ring to take him out today. She keeps going, asking if Ludgar was away so long he lost his mind, stating that some things just shouldn't be said. Scared for his life, the guy begs her to forgive him. Roxana then tells him to just drop it and continue with the report. Ludgar explains that he didn't find any trace of the shadows. Irritated, she punches a nearby beam. Getting suspicious, the captain asks if maybe Ludgar accidentally let them get away. A little ticked off, he defends himself, saying that he searched everywhere with his rings for days. He then asks about the colorless kid. Finally, Roxana asks, "You mean him?" Right on cue, someone shows up at the training grounds. The sound of footsteps echo until a guy's figure comes into view. The woman then explains that as he can see, he came back empty-handed. Cursing Ledgar realizes all their work was for nothing, leaving the white-haired guy totally clueless. Later at a party in a huge hall at the Hillen family estate, Luna recalls spending the last few days digging through and reading various messages in the mansion, trying to get some valuable intel from nobles she didn't know that well. However, in the middle of it all, there's an anonymous letter that strikes her as odd. In it, someone asks her not to marry this guy, saying that he doesn't deserve her. Curious, she wonders who could have sent it since it seems more like a fan letter. Suddenly, a woman comes over and greets Luna. As the noblewoman smiles, Luna responds, calling her Edith Napelli and saying she's happy to see her. The noble asks the girl to just call her by her first name. Even while they're talking, a bunch of voices can be heard around them. Luna recognizes Edith as a big deal in high society. The noble asks if she can ask her something if it's not rude, and Luna gives her the go-ahead. Edith then asks if the rumor is true that she's going to get married again. Luna had already seen this question coming, and with a calm smile she confirms that it's true. The news causes a stir among the other ladies, who point out her ex-husband died recently and accuse her of trying to do anything to join high society. Someone even calls her pathetic. Luna comments on how well-informed Lady Edith must be to have already heard the rumor suggesting she must be close to House Hubbard. Edith, shocked, asks what she means by bringing up House Hubbard. She's shocked to realize that Luna is apparently going to marry Duke Lasius Hubert. The other ladies dismiss the idea, pointing out that the Duke even turned down a proposal from the Imperial Princess. They claim that Luna is bluffing since she won't answer the question directly. Edith finally steps in, shutting them up and saying that they're making Viscountess Mazamel uncomfortable, pointing out they shouldn't be surprised. Edith says Luna is attractive enough to make the Duke fall for her. She then walks over to Luna and doubles down on the compliment. Surprised by Edith's unexpected behavior, Luna wonders if this woman was really like this in the original novel. As she moves away from the crowd, Luna thanks her for the help, but she quickly apologizes, saying she has to go do something. Turns out Luna is getting a weird vibe and thinks it's safer to keep her distance from Edith. Still at the party, our girl notices something. In the corner, she spots a red-haired guy with the House Blake crest and suspects he might be Baron Doug Blake. Although he wasn't mentioned in the original novel, his presence feels strangely familiar to her, even though she doesn't know why. Their eyes meet for a second, and they both flinch. Realizing the guy is walking toward her, Luna gets nervous. She's confused by this interaction since in the original novel, Baron Blake and Viscountess Mazamel barely spoke to each other. Greeting her awkwardly, the guy asks if there's any chance they've met before. Trying to stay calm, Luna thinks of a way to handle the situation. Smiling, she says she's pretty sure that's not the case. Realizing he must be mistaken, he bows, apologizing for bothering her. Turning around, the man leaves. Luna, still weirded out, wonders about this feeling of familiarity. She guesses that maybe it's because he's around the same age as her biological father. Suddenly, someone grabs her hand. When she turns around, she sees Duke Lasius kissing it. Shyly, she asks how he could do something like that in public. Lasius smiles and says he missed her, but she shoots back that they saw each other just yesterday. Moving in even closer, Lasius comments that seeing her get introduced to Roxana and Ludgar was too long ago for him. Then he takes her hand, lacing their fingers together. She hesitates for a sec, but then figures they probably won't get noticed since they're in a corner. But tough luck, they ended up drawing a crowd. Nervous, she whispers that everyone is staring at them. Lasius is totally unfazed and asks what the big deal is. The Duke adds that either way, she belongs to him. The onlookers, especially the women, are totally floored. While Edith tries to hide her reaction with her fan, Ludgar and Roxana, who are on guard duty, practically have a heart attack when they hear that. Embarrassed, Luna blushes, asking him to go somewhere else. He agrees, but while staring at her, Lasius asks her not to say her ideal type is some older, burly, hairy dude. Confused, Luna asks what he's even talking about. But when she turns around, she realizes Baron Blake is still looking at them. The Baron coughs, embarrassed. Lasius, smiling, mentions that it looked like she was checking that guy out for a while. And with a total psycho-killer look on his face, he points out that they apparently chatted for a bit too. Luna then wonders if he's actually jealous of an old guy. She starts laughing because she finds it hilarious, completely ignoring the 30 red flags the Duke is waving. When he asks why she's laughing, she promises him nothing happened with Baron Blake. And when the pouting Duke asks if she's sure, Luna just laughs even harder at how ridiculous he's being. He presses her hand against his face, asking her to stop worrying about stuff like that and pay a little more attention to him. Yeah, there's no defending that. He was totally acting like a needy puppy. Later, when they're outside the ballroom, Luna asks why he was late. He takes off his coat, indeed. The protagonist figures that if Lasius was looking for something at this point in the story, it was probably the shadows. In the book, they were entities described as corrupted ring users, commonly called holes. Unlike normal rings, which returned to the caster, the holes just floated in the air, and as soon as they found a normal ring, they would absorb it, weakening them and reducing their power. This seriously worried the ring users, causing Lasius and Ludgar to search for them for a long time, but it had never been an easy task. Feeling a little frustrated, she murmurs, realizing she hasn't seen him all day either, but figures she'll find him soon. While lost in thought, her attention is caught when she notices a lady with orange hair nearby. The protagonist recognizes her as Helm. That woman would be a key player for Lashes to get his mind back. When Luna gets up to meet her, Latzius grabs her hand and asks where she's going. The girl explains that she needs to approach Sinea to help them get the mine back. Laisha stops her and asks for a favor before she leaves. When she asks what it is, the Duke stands up, getting closer to her. Staring at her intently, Luna gets confused. Then suddenly Latzius asks her for a kiss. Not really getting it, the girl wonders what's going on, asking if Lacius is being for real. Her heart is racing along with her anxiety. From the ballroom, Edith watches them through a window, looking obviously angry and wondering if Luna was marrying just for show, or if she really loved Duke Lacius. She thinks about how much the girl had changed. After all, just a little while ago, the word love could not be associated with Luna Mazamel finding her transformation amusing, and admitting that she liked this version of Luna more. Stepping closer to our girl, Latzius moves in. But just as he leans in to kiss her, he stops. An embarrassed Luna had stopped him. Apologizing, she says she doesn't think she can do it. Pointing to Ludgar, who was whistling nervously, she mentions that the soldiers seemed to be looking for Latzius. Explaining that they both had stuff to do, she says goodbye, also telling him that he could have his coat back. As she walks away, Latzius just watches her leave without a reaction. Walking up to Helm, Luna greets her politely and introduces herself formally. The woman immediately congratulates her on the upcoming marriage. Luna thanks her, but notices the noble woman is staring off somewhere. Following her gaze, she sees a man, Helm. Our girl was sure there was some kind of tension between them. Realizing that she apparently hated him, Luna is still surprised to notice that she didn't even try to hide her look of disgust. Even though their conversation was just getting going, and despite wanting to talk more with the woman, Luna realizes Sinea seemed way more focused on watching Dawson. Trying to get the conversation back to Luna, the noblewoman comments on her second marriage, hinting that it must be with the Duke. Surprised, our protagonist asks how she found out. Sinea replies that the look on Lashes' face gave it all away. I mean, he was watching from over there with his sad puppy face. Embarrassed and blushing at that, the girl asks if they could talk for a second. The noblewoman asks if her business is really with her and not with Dawson. But our girl says it was Sinea she really wanted to talk to, so the woman tells the protagonist to follow her. In another room by themselves, Sinea asks what topic Viscountess Mazamel wants to talk about, telling the noble to just call her by her first name. Luna then gets straight to the point, asking if she'd like to become the head of her house. Shocked, the woman asks what she's planning and nervously questions why she brought her here. Luna tells her to chill out and calm down. Explaining that she wanted to take a gamble on her, she says Sinea would be a better fit as the head of House Helm. Still confused, the noble asks for some time to think it over, setting her teacup back on its saucer. Sinea was super skeptical about all this, asking if Luna, even if she was telling the truth, actually had the power to follow through on a promise, like making her the head of her house. The girl confidently says yes. She nods and explains that she gets it, then promises to give Sinea the power she wants so bad. Surprised but curious, the noble agrees to hear her out and asks what the conditions are for her help. Smiling, our protagonist demands the black diamond mine that Dawson controls. After all, once Sinea becomes the head of the house, the mine would be hers anyway. With that, Luna promises to make her the head of House Helm in just 1 year. At first, the woman laughs, but she's impressed and agrees, calling her Luna as they shake hands. Back at the party, Ludgar nervously yells for Huppart, who seems totally unfazed. On the verge of tears, the soldier asks if his master is even listening to him. Annoyed, Latzius snaps back that he wasn't saying he doesn't want to hear a thing from the guy who ruined his time with Luna. Shocked, Ludgar tries to argue, but Latzius quickly turns his head. Noticing something weird, he gets serious and calls his soldier, telling Ludgar to go get Roxana because he found a distorted ring. Ludgar asks his master if he should go with him too. But Latzius says Roxana will be enough. And with a dark look on his face, he also tells Ludgar to take Luna home when she gets back. Ludgar obeys and bows, saying he'll carry out his orders. Back at the party, Luna asks the knight where the Duke went. Ludgar explains that Huppart had to step out for a minute and ordered them to head home first. The soldier also asks her to just be casual with them. Smiling, the girl agrees, but in her head, our protagonist was still wondering what made Huppart leave so suddenly, figuring something urgent must have come up. It was probably related to tracking a shadow. While she was worrying if he'd be okay, Ludgar reassures her that Huppart has Roxana with him. He points out that ideally, Hizette would be with the Duke too, but his job was to escort her, and Hizette didn't even show up at the party. Luna nods, though she looks a little bummed out. Ludgar also mentions that Hizette is one of his fellow knights. The girl comments that he wasn't there the day they all met. The knight says he was busy with a trip at the time. Intrigued, Luna remembers that Hizette was her favorite character in the novel right after Helm, and she was pretty disappointed she didn't get to see him the other day. The girl then asks if Ludgar can introduce her to him later. She says she'd really like to meet him. Later, Hizette is just standing in his room when he hears a knock at his door. Without even waiting for an answer, Ludgar just barges in yelling. He complains that Hizette is holed up in his room again. Annoyed by the intrusion, Hizette responds sarcastically, asking if he somehow got lost, even summoning his rings and chucking them at Ludgar. Ludgar screams, thinking Hizette is actually trying to kill him. Hizette points out that he was interrupting his train of thought. And when asked what he was thinking about, he jokingly says Ludgar doesn't need to know. Ludgar says he's just in there torturing himself. Hizette denies it, saying he's just thinking about what he might have missed. Ludgar, amused, tells him to come out, hinting that Hizette would be surprised by who he brought with him. The knight, totally uninterested, says he doesn't care, and sends another ring flying at Ludgar, who begs him to keep it away. He immediately senses someone else's presence. Curious but still acting like he doesn't care, he asks Ludgar who came with him. Ludgar, who's clearly already fearing for his life, assures him it's someone who'll surprise him. Excited, and with a big smile, Luna thinks that it must be him. Her heart starts pounding when she recognizes him, remembering he was like a teacher in Big Brother to Helm. She just couldn't help but like the guy. After all, he helped her favorite character. Hizette completely ignores her and asks who Ludgar is hiding behind his back. Noticing this, Ludgar complains to him. He points out that his life is going to get a lot harder if he keeps being rude to the lady right in front of him. The girl stays quiet, still trying to process the fact that one of her favorite characters just ignored her. But trying to pull herself together, she steps forward and says it's a pleasure to meet him. Luna keeps going, introducing herself and explaining that she's going to marry his master soon. Hizette greets her politely, but it's more like a robot than a person, and he quickly shakes her hand. The knight immediately changes the subject, asking if the Duke is back yet. Ludgar says he isn't, explaining that Huppart found a contaminated ring during the party and is investigating it with Roxana. Seeing Hizette look all dejected, Ludgar laughs and points at him. He jokes that Hizette's mission is different. Intrigued, the knight asks if he really has one. Ludgar says yeah, his new mission is to walk Lady Luna around the mansion. A little later, he approaches, apologizing for keeping her waiting. He was wearing his official uniform as the Duke's knight. Luna quickly reassures him that he didn't take that long. While Ludgar tried and failed bad to hold back his laughter in the background, the protagonist remembers Ludgar had only said he was ordered to take a walk and chill for messing up his last mission. Smiling all excited, she notices how he's a perfect match to his description from the original story. Now that they're outside the mansion and walking together, Luna wonders what she should even say to him. I mean, she never thought it would be this awkward. She then asks if Lausius was always this busy. Hizette confirms that his master was probably busier than most of the knights in his order. Curious, the protagonist asks what he did. The knight says that for his mission, he was researching the Black Mana Stone mine that belonged to House Huppart. The girl remembers that it was a super valuable resource, but he explains that the mine only had a small amount of buried mana stones, and the biggest part was mostly just piles of coal. He continues. He points out that mana stones don't really work well with rings, so they weren't used directly, but were part of an expensive and time-consuming sorting process that made the mines more of a pain than a benefit. After thinking for a sec, Luna gets an idea. After all, if the mine was the problem, she might be able to help. Noticing her expression, the knight asks if something good happened, and Luna says yeah, telling him she feels like she'll be able to give Lacius an awesome gift soon. Suddenly, he freezes for a second and turns around, looking creeped out. When Luna asks what's wrong, he says it's nothing and that he must have just been seeing things for a second. Worried, the protagonist asks if he's just tired, thinking she might have made him walk too long, even though he denies it. Hizette clenches his fist tight, clearly bothered by something. A few days later, Luna meets up with her ex-mother-in-law, Sasha. She asks if the girl took her son's will. Sasha's all confident, assuming it's just a bluff, and tells Luna to show it to her. When she puts it on the table, Sasha snatches it in the blink of an eye, her rage totally obvious to everyone, shaking as she reads. The woman says it's impossible. Tearing the document in a rage, she accuses Luna of faking it and trying to steal the mansion, just like how she weaseled her way into the family. The protagonist calmly reveals that the torn-up document was actually a fake, pointing out that she has the original and offering to show the archived record at Archibald Bank. Pissed off and insulted, Sasha complains about Luna looking down on her. After the Countess cusses her out, the protagonist barely reacts. With a serious look, Luna points out that Sasha probably knew who she was going to marry. Not getting it, the woman asks what she means by that. The protagonist declares that she'll soon become Duchess Luna Huppart, by pointing out that Sasha was just a countess. The woman hesitates. Luna adds, ordering her to treat her with the proper respect a duchess deserves since she's her superior. Sasha, though totally shocked and pissed on the inside, wonders how the hell this girl managed to seduce Duke Huppart. But even so, in her eyes, this brat in front of her wasn't worth the risk of pissing off such a powerful house. Luna then proposes a deal to the Countess. Noticing how fast Sasha's attitude changed, the girl can't help but chuckle a little. She explains that she wants two things. First, the Mazamel house pass that allows for direct travel to the Nixon kingdom, and second, custody of Helm. Sasha, totally underestimating the value of the requests, thinks they're no big deal. After all, only House Hill traded with the Nixon kingdom, and Helm, being a weak and timid kid, was useless to her. Luna still assures her that she'd offer fair compensation for those things. Sasha, even though she has no idea what she wants with all that, thinks about pretending to hesitate to get a better deal out of it. She claims she doesn't feel comfortable just handing over the pass and custody of Helm like that. She asks what she'd get in return, and Luna calmly replies that she's not sure. Thinking for a second, she gets an idea and points out that House Huppart just got a black manastone mine. So Luna asks if that would be enough as a bargaining chip. Sasha is shocked, but quickly hides her excitement, realizing how rare and valuable the mine is, thinking the girl was a complete idiot for not realizing what she's giving up. When Luna asks if they have a deal, Sasha eagerly agrees, rushing to order a maid to bring the contract papers. Meanwhile, the protagonist just smiles confidently. Later, the girl is sitting at her desk, thinking that the urgent stuff is finally handled, but she's still wondering how she's going to tell Helm about her second marriage. She imagines different scenarios in her head. In one, she'd introduce Helm to Huppart directly, saying he's getting a new dad. Realizing that's awful, she quickly scraps that idea. In another one, with tears in her eyes, she apologizes to Helm, admitting her past mistakes and pointing out that the boy probably doesn't want to live with her anymore. Then Luna would say she found a dad who's even cooler, also adding that in a year, the boy wouldn't have to worry about seeing her anymore. Frustrated, the girl thinks that sounds totally insane. Even though everything's gone well so far, Luna feels like this situation is a real challenge. Deciding not to overthink it, she figures that just being honest is probably the best way to go later. Luna was waiting in a room and asked Helm to sit down. The kid's eyes immediately locked onto the cake on the table, and he asked if he could eat it. She told him she'd made it just for him and that he should enjoy it as much as he wanted. Pointing to a plate, she handed him a slice of cake. While Helm was chowing down excitedly, his mom was just happy to see him happy. She'd made that cake just in case he got too freaked out by the news about their marriage. But when she noticed some chocolate on his face, Luna warned him and then reached out to wipe it off. But the kid flinched out of instinct. The surprise on her face was totally obvious. Even with all her effort, it wasn't enough to erase everything Helm had been through. In that moment, the kid was shaking with anxiety, his traumas still fresh in his mind. Trying to cut the tension, she apologized, telling him she wouldn't touch him. Offering him a handkerchief, Luna asked if he wanted to wipe his own face. But when the kid saw the embroidered message, "Be happy, Helm," on the handkerchief, he froze for a second, then suddenly burst into tears. The protagonist was shocked and asked what was wrong. Helm, still crying, asked why she was being so nice now after everything she'd done. After all this whole time, the Viscountess had been cruel to him. Luna realized he was confused, whether she liked it or not. The kid had no idea his stepmom's soul had been swapped out, and that was always going to be a problem. With her hand on her face, she apologized again. Luna explained that when her husband died, she lost her mind from the shock and promised to never treat him that way again. Helm asked if she was for real. Lifting him into her arms, she said of course she was. Then she hugged him, holding him on her lap while the kid cried. A little later, once Helm had calmed down, Luna said she had something important to tell him. She told him that soon they'd have a new family. But the kid didn't get it at first, so she explained that she was going to marry someone who would be a great dad to him. She reassured him that the guy is super nice and will treat him right, but told him to take his time and to let her know if he didn't want a new dad. Luna said she'd give him time to think it over. Nodding his head, Helm said he liked the idea, hoping his new dad would be as nice as she was now. The kid claimed that his real dad was never that interested in him to begin with. The protagonist assured him that his new dad would care about him and do everything to make him happy, while thinking that Duke Lassias was totally different from Viscount Mazamel and her husband. She then said that if everything was cool with Helm, they should go visit him together. In the carriage, Luna asked the kid if he was nervous. Stuttering a little, Helm tried to say he was fine, but was totally failing to hide how he really felt. His legs and arms were still shaking a little. She always thought his nervousness was adorable. Smiling, she told him they were here. Luna helped Helm get down from the carriage. The coachman was mysteriously MIA. Watching the scene, Lassias commented that it was a really sweet sight. Nervous Helm looked at the guy. Remembering his mom told him his future stepdad was a nice person. Getting closer, Lassias said with a hint of jealousy that he wished she'd treat him like that too, while the kid wondered if that's what being nice was all about. Inside Hubert Mansion, a crazy amount of sweets was laid out on the table. While the butlers served them, Helm's anxiety was obvious, and whispering to his mom, he said the chair was too high. She offered to let him sit on her lap, but the kid tried to say no, saying it wouldn't be polite. Reassuring him, Luna pointed out that he could do whatever made him feel more comfortable. And holding him, she placed him on her lap, asking how he was doing now. Helm shyly admitted that he was better. Noticing Lassias' stare, she asked if the Duke had done something. Hubert smiled and denied it, and Luna suggested she must be seeing things. Even so, Helm got nervous when Lassias looked at him with a stern and scary expression. Meanwhile, he was worried that the Duke might think he was rude, or maybe already hated him. Noticing he was uncomfortable, his mom asked if something was wrong, but he quickly said it was nothing. Lassias then said hi to him, and the kid shyly answered back. Next, the Duke told Luna that he wanted to get to know the boy better. At that, she said she hoped the two of them would get along great. Lassias commented that, since they were on the subject, he suggested that Helm sit on his lap for a bit, pointing out that it'd make it easier for them to get closer. Yeah, a totally normal thing to do after knowing a kid for 10 seconds. She thought about it for a second, but Lassias reassured her that he was always really good at everything he did. Luna agreed as long as Helm was comfortable with it, asking him to just say so if he didn't want to. Even though he was hesitant and anxious, Helm remembered his mom's reassurance that Hubert was nice. Besides, the guy really seemed to like his mom. So despite what he was thinking, he decided to give it a shot, telling his mom he didn't mind. Lassius told him to come closer to his daddy. Kinda a creepy line, not gonna lie. When the kid got closer, Lassius picked him up in his arms. Luna asked if he happened to have any experience with kids, which Lassius denied while laughing. While she was confused, he reassured her, pointing out that he really was good at everything he did. The Duke asked if his view was better now, telling him to just let him know what he wanted to eat. Holding a plate, Lassius commented that he'd heard chocolate macarons were one of his favorite sweets. Helm, even though he is shy, thanks him and starts digging into the sweets. The protagonist thinks the Duke really looked like a dad right then, not to mention they looked weirdly alike. Luna says that the two of them even looked like a father and son. Joking around, Lassius asks if that's not what they were. After all, they really were going to become that from now on. Smiling, the girl says that he was right. While helping him clean up, the Duke says he also heard Helm liked pudding, and that if he wanted, he could have some ice cream too. Let's just pretend ice cream makes sense in a medieval setting. The protagonist watched, relieved, realizing that Helm would probably like his future father. After the meal, Helm falls asleep on Lassius's lap, who jokes that his son must be feeling tired. Luna realizes Lassius handled it pretty easily, and asks if they can let him sleep comfortably for a while. The Duke agrees, and handing Helm over to a maid, he suggests she let him sleep in his room. With that, he invites Luna for a walk, while the boy takes a nap. Outside, Luna and Lassius walk together. He asks what her favorite flower is, saying he'll plant it in the garden. After thinking for a moment, the girl asks if they could have a swing instead. When he asks why, she explains that she even made one herself. Happy to see her smile, Lassius agrees to her request. She thanks him, pointing out that Helm would be really happy with it. Realizing the swing was for the boy and not for her, his expression changes a bit, but seeing her smile makes his worries disappear. He asks if Luna liked the garden, and she mentions that it looked a little different from the one she walked in with his knight. Little did the girl know her innocent comment was about to get a poor guy killed. Pausing for a second, the most jealous guy in the universe, aka Lassius, asks if she happened to have walked alone with his knight. Turning and smiling, the girl asks if he didn't know. She explains that Lugger ordered his knight to accompany her. Forcing out a quick laugh, Lassius tries to play it cool, commenting while laughing that of course he knew Lugger was behind it. Despite the act, his hatred was so deep he suddenly started releasing his rings, which scared Luna. He jokes that he was just nervous from being next to her, and also points out that they were so close their hands were touching. Surprised, Luna thinks to herself that they had started walking pretty far apart. Taking a step back, the girl thinks that this distance is just fine. Lassius asks if she was tired of walking. He suggests taking a break, and then mentions that the garden has a secret area super close by. Excited, the protagonist remembers she read about this place in the novel. In the original story, Helm tried like crazy to manifest a ring, but he often failed. And whenever that happened, he'd visit a specific spot in the mansion's garden to toughen up and hold back his tears. She was sure this was the place, since it was described the exact same way. Excited, she tells Lassius to follow her as she runs into the garden, which makes him laugh. When they get there, Luna says it's adorable and asks who designed it like that. Lassius explains that his mother was the one responsible and points to the seat in the area. Luna recognizes it as the bench Helm used in the novel, but she hesitates to sit by herself. After all, there was only one seat. Lassius sits on the bench. She asks if he's not going to let her sit, thinking his behavior is weird, but the Duke quickly denies it, patting his lap. Lassius says she can sit there. Even though she protests that she's not a kid, the Duke pulls her hand, calling her over. She shyly obeys and sits on his lap. Lassius expresses how happy he is. He tells her he feels lucky to have her running his hand along her neck. When he's done, she realizes she's now wearing a necklace. Surprised, Luna asks what it is. Resting his head on her, Lassius says it's a wedding gift, explaining he's giving it to her so she'll adore him. She notices a ring inside the diamond and wonders how he managed to put it there. When Lassius asks if she likes it, Luna responds excitedly, saying she loves the gift. Standing up, she reminds him of his promise to teach her how to make a ring. Lassius affectionately comments that he remembers every single conversation they've had. So, of course, he still remembered the promise. The girl freezes, surprised by how he can say that kind of thing so casually without even blinking. The protagonist then asks what color he thinks her manifested ring will be. Smiling, Lassius says he's not sure, but he hopes it'll be the same color as his. The girl eagerly asks him to teach her how to create rings. Today. The Duke agrees, saying he'll do it if that's what she wants. Later that night in Lassius's office, Lassius admits he's never taught anyone before, and so he isn't sure if he'll be any good at it. Luna reassures him, saying that if he fails, it'll be her fault for being a bad student. Determined, he promises to try his best, so she won't be a bad student. Then Lassius gives her a weapon as a second gift. Thinking she's gotten way too many gifts today, the protagonist decides she'll bake him some cookies later as a thank you. Sitting down, Lassius reveals he's always known how to handle rings since birth, suggesting Lugger might be a better teacher. However, getting serious, he firmly points out that he doesn't want anyone else teaching her. which leaves Luna both nervous and intrigued by his reluctance to let her interact with the knights. He then starts the lesson explaining how to use a ring instead of a bullet with the pistol. He instructs her to send the ring through the weapon and says that's all there is to it. Confused, the girl asks if that's really all it is, and he confirms it, encouraging her to give it a try. When she mentions she doesn't even know how to summon a ring, Lejas replies that she'll have to figure that out on her own and suggests she start by just shooting since that might help her get the hang of it. She thinks about how Helm took 8 years to create his first ring, even with the knight's help. Doubting her own skills, she decides to try and pulls the trigger. After all, it couldn't hurt to try aiming. She finally pulls the trigger. To her shock, she manages to summon a ring on her very first try, causing a huge golden shot to blast from the barrel of the weapon. This leaves the Duke completely stunned. Surprised, she could barely believe it herself, wondering why everything seemed to be going so smoothly. The next day at the Mazamel family mansion, Luna feels uneasy thinking about how things have been going off without a hitch. With events straying from the original book and problems getting solved so quickly, she worries this might be the calm before the storm. She had even managed to summon a ring just a little while ago. Suddenly, Jane bursts into the room shouting. Startled, the protagonist asks why she seems so freaked out. Jane stammered nervously, "About His Majesty." Then suddenly a man appears, shoving Jane aside and giving off a seriously sinister vibe. He calls the protagonist by name, announcing with a smile that he's come to take Luna with him. Even though she was sweating bullets, Luna keeps her cool and greets him with a formal bow, addressing him as the son of the Empire. The man just smirks and sarcastically calls her formal greeting lame. He raises his hand. He gets closer, checking her out and commenting that she looks like a kitten of his that ran away a few years back. The member of the imperial family then says he'll decide what to do with the runaway cat later. Totally confused, the girl has no idea what he means. Thinking to herself, she questions why he's calling her that, doubting if the original Luna could have had any history with him. She remembers Enrique as the Emperor and the villain of the book, a shadowy figure who manipulated corrupted rings and went up against Latius and Helm. However, the story never mentioned any personal connection between Enrique and Luna. The guy pulls her in close and stares at her, commenting on how much prettier she's gotten since he last saw her. Luna is caught completely off guard and replies that she doesn't understand what he's talking about. But before she can even react, Enrique suddenly scoops her up and holds her in his arms. Terrified, the girl tells him to let her go immediately. Enrique refuses, stating that he's not here to escort her like a gentleman but to kidnap her. In an office, Luna sits nervously trying to process the situation. She's not sure what's going to happen to her now that she's been captured. She needed to figure out what kind of relationship Enrique had with the former Viscountess. Since the man said she had run away, Luna figured that their relationship wasn't a very good one. Enrique offers her a cup of tea and she decides to act like she doesn't know him. She politely turns him down, saying she's not a big fan of floral teas. Smiling, Enrique asks if that's all. Suddenly getting closer, he asks to take a look at something touching her face. He uses his magic, revealing a corrupted ring. Luna didn't get his intentions by showing her that. Suddenly, Enrique throws the ring right at her. Scared, the protagonist flinches back. However, the ring fastens itself around her hand. With a terrifying look, the Emperor states that it happened just as he had predicted. Luna realizes that this guy already knew that she could manipulate rings too. In the book, a deteriorated ring was always drawn to a pure ring, and Enrique's actions suggested that the original Viscountess Mazamel could also use a ring. Terrified, the protagonist realizes the Emperor may have been using the Viscountess to purify his own rings. Something not mentioned in the novel was that Enrique wasn't in a good position in the line of succession. But despite that, he managed to gain a ton of power with the support of the rings, eventually taking the throne. The protagonist wondered how he managed to convince people that he was a user of pure rings, figuring that he must have exploited Viscountess Mazamel and passed her rings off as his own. The book mentioned that only very rare individuals were chosen by the ring, and Enrique could have used her for his own gain once he discovered her secret. However, the Viscountess wasn't the type to just let herself be used by the Emperor, so maybe her rushed marriage to the Viscount was her attempt to get away from Enrique, since having a husband would make it a bad look for Enrique to keep pursuing and visiting her all the time. But with Viscount Mazamel now dead, Enrique had no more roadblocks leading to his bold move of kidnapping her like this. Snapping her out of her thoughts, Enrique directs his attention to her hand. Luna anxiously notices that the ring is starting to be purified. Enrique comments that her ring still remembers him. She realizes Enrique must have been desperate and was likely purifying his ring for the first time in a long time. If she stayed any longer, she might never be able to leave, so she tries to say goodbye. However, the Emperor cuts her off harshly, saying they weren't done yet and grabbing her wrist. He asks if Luna got rude now that she's become a stray cat. Frightened, the girl fires back that she wasn't his pet. Quickly apologizing, Enrique asks if she's happy now. He states that she's no longer his little cat, but even so, he's never letting her go again. The Emperor speculates that she might have used Duke Lasias to escape, or had some other plan up her sleeve. But bringing up Lasias's rep for not being into women, Enrique insists there's no way Lasias actually loved her, suggesting she just proposed a contract marriage to get hitched again and secure her freedom. Holding her hand, Enrique claims he's the only one who really loved her. Getting the creeps. Luna realizes that Enrique is just after the ring's power, wondering why guys like him always had to talk about love. Memories of her past life came flooding back of her father, telling her he only did everything out of love for her, claiming no one else in the world cared about her as much as he did. The protagonist wondered if she was just destined to spend her entire life suffering from people trying to use her. However, a flash of Lasias crosses her mind, his sweet memories reinforcing that there were still people who truly cared about her. Finding her resolve, Luna snatches her hand away from Enrique's grip, stating she disagreed with him. Seeing the girl smile, the Emperor doesn't get it. She points out that she really did have someone who loved her, and that someone was Duke Lasias. She bows and politely says goodbye. Enrique laughs but says she won. Ignoring this, the Emperor offers her the one thing she's always wanted as long as she stopped being mad at him. Luna realizes Enrique still didn't plan on taking her seriously, so she refuses, stating she has zero reason to accept anything from him and doesn't even want it. When he was about to confront her, a loud noise comes from the door, the sound of guards yelling that no one could enter without permission. Confused, the Emperor has no idea what's going on. With a bang, Duke Lasias bursts through the door. The protagonist is surprised by his sudden appearance, wondering how he knew where she was. Asking what she was doing here, Lasias expresses his concern. Relieved by his arrival, Luna looks at the Emperor. She takes the opportunity to show Enrique how close she is to Lasias, linking her arm with his and smiling. Lasias hesitates at this gesture, not used to being so close to someone. Enrique, looking visibly irritated, confronts Lasias, asking if he hadn't noticed the Emperor himself was standing there. Sarcastically, Lasias asks if he'd been there the whole time. The Emperor accuses him of being pretty rude, but Lasias claps back. After all, it was Enrique who dragged his future wife to this place, so he had no room to talk about rudeness. He reminds the Emperor of the long-standing relationship between the imperial family and House Huppart, and warns him not to push it, otherwise Lasias would cut those ties himself. He also points out that if this happens again, they won't be facing each other in fancy clothes, threatening the possibility of a real conflict. With that, the two turn and begin to leave the place while the Emperor seethes in frustration. Back in the carriage, Luna wonders what the thing Viscountess Mazamel wanted was, but it would probably just be another problem for her. A moment later, Lasias gently places his hand on Luna's face. She asks what that was, and he replies that there was something on her face, wondering if maybe the filth from Enrique's ring was still on her. She doesn't realize Lasias's true intentions. He asks what she and the Emperor talked about, but Luna says she herself didn't understand much of what he said. Getting closer, he says that next time she can just shoot him and Lasias will handle the rest. Not understanding what he meant, she asks why he would do that for her. A little embarrassed, he smiles and says it's because she's his wife. Innocently, Luna says that even so, she's only his wife by contract and for 1 year, but he says they're still husband and wife. Smiling, Lasias says that because of that, he wants to love his wife properly while the contract lasts. Embarrassed by his sudden words, Luna changes the subject and asks how he knew she was at the Imperial Palace, pointing to the necklace. Lasias says he had a feeling something bad was happening with it, so he went to her room to find her. Luna finally realizes that Lasias's ring and the necklace react to each other, and that's how he found her. Finishing what he was saying, Lasias says Luna's maid told him what had happened. Either way, Enrique Archibald was the shadow he'd been looking for, but apparently, he was right under his nose. Luna remembers that in the novel, Lasias also discovered who the shadow was, but he had to finish everything without any reward, specifically because of the deal the Imperial family and the Huppert family made a long time ago. Instead of the royal family wiping out the Huppert family, which was a major threat, they decided to team up. As a result, Archibald grew even more powerful. However, in the novel, Helm ended up wiping out the Imperial family anyway, so it wasn't even mentioned what Huppert had been offered in the deal. Maybe if Lasias holds back from harming the Emperor, they will have paid a huge price, and Luna is sure Lasias knows that. When they arrive at Luna's quarters, she thanks him for the ride. As she gets out of the carriage, Lasias smiles and says she doesn't need to thank him every time since they're married. Luna says that's precisely why. They should thank each other and calls him by his name, Lasias. He makes a gesture as if something hit his heart, and she worriedly asks what happened. Smiling, Lasias replies that it was because his heart skipped a beat when he heard her call him by his first name. Back at the Imperial Palace, the Emperor is still thinking that he thought the two had just made a contract marriage to fool everyone else. But Lasias's look said the exact opposite, like he was actually in love with Luna, giving a wicked smile when he realized the Emperor thinks it's way better this way since he'll be able to get way more out of Luna because of it. And that's a wrap, guys. I hope you enjoyed the story. I thought it was cute, but with a touch of suspense and a ton of intrigue. I'm hoping their relationship speeds up and they get together soon. What did you think? Let me know in the comments. The manhwa is called A Simple Guide to Surviving as a Stepmom, and I covered up to episode 21. There are 69 more chapters. So if you guys really like it and share the video, I'll drop a part 2. Catch you in the next one.